Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And in this video, I've had this on my mind for a little while now, and I wanted to address it in this video, give you guys my takes, my views. I want to hear from you guys in the comments. And it has to do with this T-Mobile Starlink partnership. Essentially, from what I understood, and there's certain videos floating around, several, right, of people actually going to areas now and they're doing testing. They're testing the beta, which is what they're supposed to do. But I've noticed something in a few instances, and it didn't sit right with me, and I didn't like it. So I'm going to speak out. I know I have objective takes, but when something's not right, I will call it out. And I think this is a major problem for T-Mobile, and they need to fix it. So the T-Mobile Starlink partnership essentially was built off of non-terrestrial coverage areas where there's no terrestrial network, where there's nothing there, right? No tower sites, no nothing. And that's what it was essentially meant for, right? At the time, that's how T-Mobile presented it when the announcement was made, I think in August of 2022. That's what they essentially discussed. And that was the go-to market. That's how they're going to bring it to market. Hey, we can offer you service in areas where you've never gotten service before, as long as you can see the sky. So now people are testing this service, and they're going to areas where they know for sure that T-Mobile has no coverage. And then, as they should, they start connecting to Starlink if they're in the beta program, if they've been accepted. So they connect to it. They get a bar. They get 2, maybe 3, depending, right? And then they test and they try out the service. And then what happens, right? A little bit later on, you start finding out in these videos that Verizon and AT&T have native coverage. So that's not how this is supposed to work, in my view. You can never, like for like, compare a satellite connection to native coverage. It's just never going to perform the same. So, yes, I have to look at it from both sides. I got to look at it from point A. Something is better than nothing. So at least a T-Mobile customer there has a connection of some sort where they can at least text, call, whatever, when it's properly commercially operational, if they can ever get it to work that way. And then I got to look at it from the other side, right? From point B, Verizon and AT&T have coverage in those areas. So if you're a T-Mobile customer and you frequent that area, you should be switching. You should be switching, because to start, you probably shouldn't even be with T-Mobile if that area is where you're having service issues, right? That's another point. You shouldn't even be with T-Mobile. But then if you're a customer that's going there every now and then, but you're still looking to have a great experience wireless wise, you're not going to get it from that Starlink T-Mobile service, right? It's just meant like if you're in the area, say you're hiking, walking through the woods, and you need to send a quick message like, hey, I'm on my way. Hey, I made it safe. That's what that's for. It's not for a standard regular connection that you're constantly going to be calling and texting back and forth. That's not what that's meant for. But that's what some are finding, that T-Mobile is literally covering all their dead spots using Starlink when Verizon and AT&T have native coverage, doing like 200 plus megabits a second. That T-Mobile cannot allow that to happen, in my opinion. Now, if they can get the Starlink service to do 50 megabits per second, maybe 10 on the uplink, if they can get that going, if they can get calling as crystal clear as HD voice or voice over NR, if they can get it to that point, then I'll be quiet. I won't say nothing. But if we're talking, when it's fully operational, if we're talking getting maybe 1 or 2 megabits per second, maybe 3, if we're talking like under a megabit on uplink. If we're talking texting, taking a while, right? Not being instantaneous. If we're talking calling, being choppy and dropping calls, no, you can't. You can't offer that type of service in that area when Verizon and AT&T have native coverage. That's not going to work. And I would hope that at some point Verizon and AT&T use that to their advantage. They say, hey, look, T-Mobile is overhyping this. They're filling all their dead zones with this Starlink product when it's not meant for that. It's literally meant for areas that are literally off the grid. That's what the service was originally meant for. And yes, I know Starlink, they're building more density. They're sending more of those direct to cell satellites and all that stuff. But it's still, people are data hungry. Plans are unlimited. It's not going to work the same. There is no like for like comparison to compare native, especially once they get all the C-band out there. There is no like for like. It's just not happening right now. In the future, maybe they develop some crazy technology and Starlink can do 200-300 megabits on a connection, maybe, right? I won't rule out that possibility. But for now, it's just not possible. And that's what's being seen out there, right? It's not something that we're talking about. No, it's being seen in testing that T-Mobile has no coverage areas that they're covering now with the satellite, where Verizon and AT&T both have native coverage. That, in my opinion, that's a big no-go. That's a big no-no. That should not be happening. T-Mobile should be filling those same areas with native coverage. They should only primarily make use of this for non-terrestrial purpose. In the AT&T Analyst Day presentation, they presented a map, and they had AST coverage on that map for future reference. They were only covering areas with that service where there's absolutely no cellular signal, like the Grand Canyon, the mountains and the Oregons and those places is where they're going, like more north. Everything else on that map was natively filled in. And I know AT&T's map is over-exaggerating, but that's the vision that they have. And I'm sure Verizon will view that the same. Right? If you have populated areas, you don't want to cover that with satellite. You just don't want to do that. And that's what's being spotted. Now, I don't want to say that's necessarily the rule and not the exception, but I mean, I've seen people tell me they can literally travel 30 miles, get into a T-Mobile dead spot that's now on the map listed as satellite coverage. And I've seen T-Mobile's map before and after, and a lot of those dead spots are now filled in with satellite coverage. So it's starting to become the rule, not the exception, and I have a problem with that. The satellite was supposed to be the exception where you have no other means of return on investment and it not becoming the rule. So I have problems with that, and I'm calling it out. That's just me, right? Like I said, I look at it from both sides, right? You might say, hey, I'm a T-Mobile customer. I like my service where I'm at. I like the plan that I'm on, but I do travel to this area where this will come in handy. I got no problems with that. But if you're going to that area expecting to have the same experience as a Verizon and AT&T customer that have native coverage, right? I don't want to hear those complaints pop up in the comments in the future, right? Then I'm just going to say, you switch to Verizon and switch to AT&T at that point. That is a decision that T-Mobile made, right? Will they get to some of those areas with more time, with some type of native coverage? It's a possibility, right? But those are areas that have been with no service for a long time. If there's no service there in 2025, there wasn't any last year, the year before, the year before that, the year before that. So they have made those decisions in-house to not serve that area that's now getting served with Starlink. So I just wanted to address that in this video. I didn't like that one bit. right? I was expecting to see Starlink pop up where AT&T and Verizon had no coverage as well. I wasn't expecting to see Starlink pop up where Verizon and AT&T are doing 200 megabits plus and like 2030 on uplink, where you can do FaceTime calls and everything. I wasn't expecting that. So that's crazy to me. We'll see how this goes, right? This is a beta. We'll see how it goes when it launches in July. We'll see how it progresses over the years, but I just don't see that service ever matching a native connection in performance. I don't see that, especially as AT&T and Verizon move more off of LTE and they get onto 5G and C-bands deployed. It's just not going to happen. There's just no way, no how. So before I let this video get too long, let me know your thoughts and views on that in the comments. Let me know if you're fine with just having that satellite connection where Verizon and AT&T have full native coverage. Let me know in the comments. I totally disagree, right, with that. I think T-Mobile needs to match that. Maybe not tomorrow, not next year, but over time they have to bring native services to those areas, especially if their competitors are covering it natively. So let me know your thoughts. Like, share, subscribe. See y'all in the next one. Peace.